Hi, welcome aboard. We've got a mixed bag for you today. A little later in the show we'll be looking at some working, competing cattle dogs. We'll also be looking at the two boats which jointly won the Boat of the Year award this year, and we'll be going flying towards the end of the show. But first up, this old 1932 Chev looks tatty and dilapidated, doesn't it? But to a dedicated car restorer, it represents a prize. It's reasonably sound, capable of being restored to at least as good, in some cases better, than its former glory. And there are cars like this sitting around in farm sheds around the country being sought constantly by these dedicated restorers. Now, there are restorers and restorers, and there's a band of people within the car restoration movement who are dedicated to the ultimate restorations, and they are called Concours d'Elegance restorations. Concours d'Elegance being lines of beauty, or the ultimate degree to which you can restore a motor car. And a couple of years ago we covered a Concours d'Elegance on Hamilton Island, and this Concours was won by Wolf Grodd with a Gullwing 300 SL Mercedes-Benz. Now, Wolfgang's a very interesting character, and he's totally dedicated to the restoration of exotic rather than just classic motor cars. And he has a workshop in Brisbane which is an Aladdin's cave if you like exotic motor cars. It's a big workshop. It's full of cars which would just take your breath away from the point of view of their beauty and particularly their rarity. And Wolf restores these cars for owners from all countries of the world. He does it on a progressive basis. And recently he received a commission from a Japanese owner to restore a car to Concours standard for the Pebble Beach Concours d'Elegance, which is the ultimate Concours d'Elegance in the world. Let's talk to Wolf and see what he's been able to achieve. Wolf, you're on the run up to a most portentous event for Sleeping Beauties, aren't you?
Yeah, it's been a dream for years, for a lifetime.
To go to Pebble Beach?
Exactly.
Is
yes.
that right?
Yes.
Are you happy with the car that's going?
Yes and no. I wish it was a more exotic car.
Right.
Because it isn't an SS1. It's a fairly ordinary car in terms of Pebble Beach standards.
Yes.
I mean, most cars at Pebble Beach are built with bodies by Sachik and Fagoni and Falaschi and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
This is just a square English perpendicular.
Yes.
And but we've gone to what I like to think 130%.
Right.
So we've sacrificed a degree of originality for the sake of having it eligible and acceptable at Pebble Beach.
Tell me, how difficult is the Pebble Beach competition? I mean, it's the ultimate Concours d'Elegance in the world, isn't it?
The easiest way to answer it is in 1980 I went there for the first time, and I learned the term 100 point. In America, a 100-point car is simply a perfect car. It is the way it left the factory when it was brand new. That's 100 point. You can't go any better than that. Well, I remember in 1980 there were 9 classes, and they had a first, second and third in each class.
27. Yeah.
27 cars. There were 130 cars entered on the day, and the 27 cars were all 100-point cars.
Is that
so
right?
even the poor fellow who came third, he still had a 100-point car.
Yeah.
Now, we would like to think that this is a unique opportunity for us to build a 100-point car,
yes,
because somebody was prepared to pay for it.
Yes.
It's 100-point is perfection, and perfection is something very few of us can afford.
But we all aspire.
Well, we all want it,
Yes.
but perfection is almost not achievable.
Tell me a little bit about Sleeping Beauties. Tell me about your operation here, because it's pretty well unique, certainly in Australia, and probably unique in the world.
Well, it isn't unique in the world. A lot of people restore old cars, and like somebody said in America recently, more cars have been destroyed by restorers than have been restored. Yeah. We'd like to think we take our work very seriously. It's been a dream of mine. After 30 years in advertising, I wanted to do the real thing, and that was play with old cars. And now with 40 cars in the shop, I've got more cars than I've ever dreamt of. In fact, I have a saying, be careful what it is you wish for, because you might just get it. Well, this is a bit of a nightmare, because in a recession, to play with people's toys that are a long way down on the list of priorities,
yes,
I think we give ourselves enormous credit every day for being able to open the doors. Let's hope it's all the way uphill from here.
Now, obviously, every single project has a personality of its own, whether
Yes.
from the point of view of sourcing spare parts, difficulty of working with aluminium bodies, say, mechanical problems because of exotic and unusual types of engines. Do you find that the bulk of the cars are like that, or do you find that they sort of roll through?
Well, it's actually more complex than that. There's a car behind us, and about a year ago, a doctor from Ipswich rang me, and he said, I would like you to restore for me a late 50s Mercedes 220 Cabriolet, a drop-head. And I said, oh, I love those. I had one for 13 years, and if I could afford it, I would do it for free. He said, well, what sort of money will it cost to do a car like that? And I said, well, it depends on the condition of your car. Oh, he said, I haven't got it. So he didn't have a car. He just wanted one restored. So the first thing we had to do is find him a car. It wasn't that simple. We found one, and it was pretty bad. And it's now here, and it's getting very close, 1 month from delivery. Every job is totally individual. Somebody just said to me, oh, there's a Healy, one of my favourite cars. And I said to him, well, we do Healys on a long weekend. Because after the 4th, we know them pretty well. All the parts are readily available. When you get into stuff like this, or exclusive cars of the 30s, like the SS1, a lot of it you've simply got to make.
You have to make from scratch.
Yes. When we got the SS1, the engine had been done, and we found that the gearbox, the water pump housing was cracked. So we took it apart, had it welded up and machined, but then we realised that there was nothing in it. So we found out that the Mark IV Jaguar, which there are a few of those around, has exactly the same water pump. Well, we couldn't find anybody who had a spare water pump. We ended up twisting somebody's arm to take the water pump off the car. We dismantled it. We had all the parts machined, painted his water pump up nicely and gave it back to him, and we now have a water pump in this car.
Well, Wolf, all the best at Pebble Beach. I really hope it goes well for you, and I'm sure that even if you're in that top 27, as long as it's a 100-pointer.
No, there will be around 130 cars.
Right.
And normally Pebble Beach is by invitation only.
Yes.
The organisers, it's a charity event. The organisers make their point of tracking down the cars that they want to show.
Right.
Well, that doesn't apply for overseas.
No.
Now, I think our car is only the 3rd or 4th ever from Australia to be shown at Pebble Beach. It is really tricky to get into.
Yes.
Well, I went there last year, and I sort of paved the way by talking to them, and the criteria really is the standard of restoration. And I managed to convince them that we would be scraping in and we would be good enough. I didn't have the car then, but I knew it was coming. And we are already winning, because to be accepted as an exhibitor at Pebble Beach is a real honour. I mean, I'm going to put a big sign on my letterhead, not service to the Queen, but exhibited at Pebble Beach. We don't need to win to be a winner.
Welcome back. We recently attended the Primex Primary Industries Exhibition in Casino in northern New South Wales. And I was very impressed with Primex. It covered a huge area of ground. There were exhibits both for the general public and particularly for primary producers. And when the recovery does eventually arrive, I'm sure our primary producers will be well supplied with the very latest in technology and equipment to make sure that they are able to continue to do their job well. And among the most interesting exhibits was this JCB Fast Track tractor, which will replace the conventional tractor, the design of which has been with us for probably 150 years, once things get going again. But one of the highlights of Primex for us was the State of Origin cattle dog trials. Now, Primex runs from Thursday morning to Saturday afternoon. And on Thursday and Friday, there are heats for the State of Origin cattle dog trials. And it's a very interesting trial. We're used to seeing sheepdogs working sheep in Australia. That tends to be part of our culture. And also cattle dogs working cattle out in the open paddocks. But in this particular trial, the dogs are required to yard 3 beasts. The beasts are very carefully chosen to be wild and intractable, and the dogs are required to put the beasts through a series of gates and obstacles within a certain time period, and they are scored by judges up to 100 points for each judge. Now, the dog and the handler work together in close cooperation. In fact, the opinion was passed that the handler is responsible for probably about 40% of the quality of the particular run, and the dog and its expertise, its experience and its general basic knowledge is responsible for around about 60% of it. I must confess that looking at the trials, and we watched them right through, I found that the performance of a dog was very closely dependent on the particular beasts the dog happened to draw, because some beasts were far less tractable than others were, and groups of cattle were able to make some of the dogs look very good, and I'm sure they were good anyhow, and others certainly made the work of a very good dog far more difficult than it probably should have been. But this is one of the variable factors which any dog is likely to come across when it's actually working for its living. So I guess it's a factor that can be written into the overall equation. Now, the competition started last year. It was very well covered between Queensland and New South Wales. New South Wales won it last year, and it was a very close competition this year. Competitors such as Norm van der Broek with Jill, Kev Mahn with Joker and Jake. Kev entered 2 dogs. Arch Nixon with Prince Arthur, Snow Ellis with Spark, Stan Hughes with Ring, Stan Brown with Spice and Noel Slattery with Zoe. They were the finalists. In fact, Noel Slattery with Zoe scored the highest points of the day. And some of the other competitors, such as Linda Slattery, who is Noel's daughter with George. Linda's around about 16 years old and the youngest competitor and the only woman, certainly did remarkably well. At the end of the day, after all of the scores had been put together and the dogs had handled some very difficult beasts, it came out that New South Wales once again won the State of Origin cattle dog trials. As I said, it was a very closely fought competition. It really was edge of your seat spectating. In fact, I found myself becoming very involved in how the dog was doing. It was certainly possible to read how the dog was relating to the particular beasts it drew and how well it was handling it. And I'm sure the judges marked the dogs on the basis not only of the time that they took, but also their ability to handle very difficult beasts. So it bodes well for the future of the State of Origin cattle dog trials. Now, no event like this works unless it's properly sponsored. There are a lot of logistics to handle. People have to come from all over New South Wales and Queensland. And Pal Meaty Bites, in my opinion, by picking up sponsorship, have probably read the future extremely well. This is an action event. It is different in many ways to the sheepdog trials that we're used to seeing in Australia. And I expect that in the next few years we will see the State of Origin cattle dog trials, sponsored by Pal Meaty Bites, stand up very well. Next year, around about middle of June, Primex is on at Casino each year. It certainly bodes well to be at least as big, if not bigger, in 1994 than it was this year. It's worth a visit, regardless of what your interest may be. There's something to interest absolutely everybody. But whatever you do, make sure you're there for the Saturday for the finals of the State of Origin cattle dog trials. We'll be back right after this break. Welcome back. We've mentioned the Modern Boating Magazine and Boating Industry Association Boat of the Year Awards on several occasions over recent months. They really are a prestigious event, and they give the industry a barometer of how they're going as far as quality and customer acceptance is concerned, and also how the products of the Australian industry compare with their peer group from the rest of the world. Now, I've often said that as far as seaworthiness and structural strength and basic hull design are concerned, Australian boats are the equal to any from anywhere in the world. Over the last 5 years, however, the Australian industry has really lifted its game as far as presentation of the boats is concerned. Surface finish, colour schemes, the quality and degree of deck fittings, upholstery materials, carpets and that sort of thing have really come up into world class over that last 5 years. Now, the 1993 competition was very hard fought, contested by around about 70 superb products from all categories from all over Australia. But the SeaFarer organisation from the Gold Coast really did sweep the pool. You just saw the VC, which won the 5 metre class, and the Vermont Runabout, which you're looking at here, and the Victory fishing boat not only jointly won their class because the judges simply were not able to choose between the two boats, so they had what amounts to a dead heat for first, But when it came to choosing the overall Australian Boat of the Year for 1993, the judges had no alternative but to also classify the Vermont and the Victory as the overall joint Boats of the Year for Australia. Now, to win one class is an achievement indeed, but to win two classes and then to have two boats win one class is unprecedented, and then to have those two boats win the overall Boat of the Year title really is an accolade indeed for Lindsay Fry, whom you see there from the SeaFarer organisation. Lindsay has been in business for around about 30 years. His father started the business years ago. He has always been renowned for building good, honest boats. In fact, the original VC is one of the smallest boats in regular use for offshore rough water rescue duties, very popular with fishermen, etc. And I suspect that the Victory that you see here will be even more popular as an out-and-out fishing machine for people who like to fish offshore and inshore. So hearty congratulations from all of us here at Leisure World to the SeaFarer organisation. An absolutely magnificent job, completely new models for 1993, and certainly justifying all the work and effort that's gone into their presentation. Well, Neville, last week we looked at fishing line, and we talked about the fact that there are hard and soft fishing lines, soft for sand and mud and hard for fishing around rocks. Is it critical that you use that type? I mean, do you have to really be pedantic about whether you're going to fish with hard or soft today?
Well, yes, you have, but let's face it, you can't end up with a room full of line just to go fishing. So you've got to strike a happy balance somewhere along the line. I would suggest any person fishing on the rocks every now and then, doing most of their fishing in the river or in the surf, use an ultra soft line.
Right.
If you do most of your fishing round rocks and this kind of thing, use a line. Pardon me, it's got a heavier case on it, harder case.
Because it's sort of a self-leveling thing. I mean, people fish in particular environments, and they either fish on the sand or on the rocks. So. And it's also possible to load up reels and label them with what sort of line you're using, so that you can grab the appropriate reel. You don't have to be really thinking about it.
It's nothing to stop you using a fishing line, an ultra soft. And if you go around the rocks or something, put on a leader of hard line.
Okay.
So you can do that. That's another way out of it. Chris, if you have a look at these lines, you'll see that they are high vis.
Right.
That's high visibility, used for one purpose only, and that is so that when you're game fishing, the skipper of the boat can actually see that line from the fly bridge.
Right.
That's the only reason why you use high visibility lines. Why they would put this on that long rod reel there, I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's there.
Not appropriate.
I'll have to speak to Mr. Bruce about that.
So for virtually all fishing except game fishing, you use lines.
You use a neutral colour, such as your greens and your blues and greys and this type of colour, because they will disappear once you get underwater, and be very quick to disappear. In the
right now, the average fisherman who's got a little 5 metre centre console and fishes in an estuary, what sort of weights of line would he have to?
Well, he'd be looking at something like a 10-pound line.
Average.
If he's fishing for whiting, that kind of thing. A good high class 8-pound line.
Yes.
A lot of people use that down to 4.
Right.
But for the average guy, an 8-pound high class line would be the best to use in, say, the river for your whiting, bream, etc.
Another question. You often hear the fact that bream require excellent equipment and technique to catch. Does the weight of the line have a direct effect on your kill rate with bream and whiting?
Yes, it does, because if you get too heavy, well, everything becomes too heavy.
Right.
The secret with bream is keep everything light.
Right.
Very light. The lighter the better. So that you can actually just float your baits down nice and gentle.
If you're specialising in bream and, say, ludrick,
yes,
you'd go down to, say, 4-pound line.
Yes, you'd go down to a very light. Remembering, once again, you're fishing around rocks, and I tend to think myself, the average guy fishing for bream and this sort of thing should go for around the 8 to 10-pound high-class line.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
That gives him a bit of bulk to wipe up against a pylon of a jetty or something like that. And if you have a look at this jetty that's right behind us now, you'll see down below everything that gets around the piles that the fish feed on.
Yeah.
It's very rough for your lines, yes.
All right, well, look, we'll come back next week and have a look at the only other thing you have to do with lines is tie knots in it to put hooks and things on.
Yes.
Let's come back next week and have a look at that.
Right.
Welcome back. Around about 8 years ago, I embarked on a personal journey, and that journey was to design and build what I regarded at that time, and your ideas change, as the ultimate ultralight aeroplane. The result is the aeroplane you see here is the Sparrow, and regular viewers have glimpsed the aeroplane during its gestation period over the last 8 years or so on the show. Now, the Sparrow was entirely designed and built here. It uses accepted procedures and processes for structures and for aerodynamics. There's certainly nothing groundbreaking in the design of this aeroplane. I wanted an aeroplane which aligned with the design values that were applied to aeroplanes in the mid-30s, and that's exactly what this one does. And I should also say that nobody ever does a project like this by themselves. I mean, every part of this aeroplane, apart from the wheels and the engine, were made here, but I also had a lot of help from friends, and I want to particularly mention Arthur Hill, whose genius with a machine helped to make this belt reduction drive here. John Wynne, whom you'll meet next week on the show, also helped with a lot of the machining. Edwin Neuenbell from Split Cycle Engineering, who helped me adapt a 50 horsepower Mercury starter motor and ring gear to avoid the dangerous process of starting the engine by swinging the propeller. And Toby Payton, who has helped me with these last final details, the installation of the final systems on the aeroplane. And it's true to say, everybody who builds an aeroplane around the world, 90% of the aeroplane takes 10% of the work, and the last 10% takes 90% of the work. So that really is how it works out. Now, the project has taken 8 years, but I guess I've devoted about 1,800 hours of spare time over that 8-year period, and in the meantime built a number of other aeroplanes to various stages, all of which will be finished off. And this personal journey that I mentioned at the beginning is an important one. For me, I love aeroplanes, so I like to design and build them, but anybody who works with their hands and who has had that personal adventure of creating something knows how fulfilling it can be, whether you're building a boat or a car or an aeroplane or even a house. If you're doing it yourself with your own hands and your mind and your hands are working together, it is a tremendously fulfilling experience. Now, we're going to take this aeroplane out to Boona in the next day or so and fly it on its first test flights, and we're going to take our camera crews out and record it and show it to you next week. So watch out for that, along with all of our normal content next week on Leisure World. That wraps us for another week. We'll see you next week with another show. In the meantime, take care and safe boating.